Good evening and welcome to Pressing Issues from WDW News Today. I'm Jason Diffendal and I'll be your host for this week's episode. Today is May 31st, 2020. And today we're going to be talking about Josh D'Amaro getting promoted to Chairman of Parks and Resorts. We're going to talk about the announcement of the July 11th park openings for the Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom. We'll talk about DVC Resorts opening in just about 3 weeks on June 22nd. And we'll also talk about everybody's dining and Fast Pass reservations being canceled. With me tonight, we have Axel.
Good evening.
We have David Smith.
Hey everyone, nice to be here.
And we have the one and only Tom Corliss.
And we will specifically not be talking about the reopening of Epcot and Hollywood Studios, I guess.
It's not even worth it. It's next week. All right. So, first up on the list, a bit of good news, I think, for everybody. Josh D'Amaro, who was the president of all the Walt Disney World Resort, got promoted to chairman of Parks, Resorts, and Consumer or something or other, and Products, of course.
And Microwaves.
Yes. So Josh was at Walt Disney World as president for only about a year before getting promoted, but the position that...
3 months,
What?
if even, right? 4 months?
Oh, I don't know. It was.
When did he get
It was
the
less
job?
than a year.
In the fall? It was way less than a year.
Oh, okay, less than a year.
I'm not sure he hit
so
two
he-
quarters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was there for way less than a year before getting promoted to take Bob Chapek's old role, which had been open since Bob was promoted to CEO in a disastrous mistake. But anyway, everybody's happy for some good news. It seems that all the cast members at Walt Disney World really like Josh. And he was even out the day that Disney Springs opened, and some people like Axel got a picture taken with him. So, really personable guy, it seems, and I think will be a much more well-liked person in the chairman role than Bob Chapek was. I'm happy already, and Josh hasn't even done anything. Well, it just means that, he's one step closer to the CEO position. So that's the good news. This week is going to be filled with good news, actually, because everybody's upset that there's been so much bad news the past 6 episodes now. So we're going to stick to good news this week. But anybody want to talk about Josh?
Outside your home.
Well, and we're inside, so. Anybody want to talk about Josh? Any experiences that they've had meeting him or anything like that?
No, he's I really appreciate it. So the first time that I saw him in person here in Walt Disney World was closing off Magic Kingdom on March 15th, when he was there on the train station, and then he walked down the stairs where he took pictures with tons of people, really approachable, but he's married to all the females who will ask in the chat, like they always do. Yes, he's married, so no, that's the first thing that people ask, like, wow, this guy, is he single? Nope.
On the other hand, Tom
really
Corliss is not
approachable.
married. To all the females in the chat that ask, or that might ask.
Wow.
No, but I was talking about somebody who's approachable. That's the difference. People are still afraid that Tom bites.
Oh. You missed it.
No,
I'm beloved now. You missed it. Everything changed.
I really appreciated that he was there on the opening of Disney Springs, still taking like social distance selfies. I'm not sure for this position. As I said, as I texted the day we knew, I texted to Tom like, I don't know if I'm happy or sad if this is a poison gift or not. Because Josh is a good guy and he's going to be great at what he's doing, but his heritage is not the best, especially now with the parks being in this current crisis. So I hope he gets out of this alive, and then you're still like, even if he's willing to change things, don't forget that the one above him is still the devil disguised as a robot. So I'm awaiting good news, and I'm really eager to see him start and then do things in this new role, but I'm really careful.
A correction from the chat. I am, of course, the devil. Just to remind everybody. What's funny is today marks the 1-year anniversary of the first time I met Josh D'Amaro at the opening of Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. He came and greeted everyone towards the very front of the group, and we were there, and I just remember that striking me that, I've had so few interactions with vice presidents in parks at Walt Disney World, actually in the park greeting guests, that was a breath of fresh air. But Jason also said something that I think encapsulates my feelings on Josh D'Amaro so far. He hasn't even done anything yet. That's my problem. He is absolutely a better human being. There is no doubt. He clearly cares more about cast members. He clearly at least shows the appearance that he cares more about guests. So that's already a plus. But we don't know anything beyond that. It is too early to tell, and he has not been anywhere long enough to know if he's going to make any difference. So he wasn't at Disneyland long enough to know if he made a difference there. At least I think he made a difference with cast. Casts are very positive. And
well,
Florida is kind of the same thing, but we don't know what this guy does for, let's not forget, in his time in charge at Disneyland, they still move forward with a fairly cheap Avengers campus land. Disneyland's not coming out of their best period either. So I'm not sold yet. Is he a better person? Absolutely. I don't sign off on anyone until I see things go a certain direction, and he hasn't been anywhere long enough yet for it to go in a direction.
So I think that's fair. That's certainly a fair assessment. And I think the one thing that we needed first was we needed to know that there was a human in that position. And I know we joke about it, and I'm not doing the robot joke. I'm saying, could you imagine Bob Chapek out in front of Disney Springs taking selfies with people? And it's just not something that would have happened. And very few executives in this company would have done that. So, at the very first, it's nice that we have somebody who understands the need to reach out to guests, reach out to cast members, and make sure that they understand that he is human. He understands the emotions behind a trip to the Disney parks. So that's a good start. But I think you're right, Tom. Until we see evidence that he can turn things around, either I'm sure, whether he wants to or not, there's still going to be pressure to hit financial goals, and it's going to be difficult to reach those in the current environment. We'll have to see how much rope he is given in that pursuit.
Well, there's two things. Like when he was at Disney Springs, don't forget that he was just coming off of his role here in Florida, that times to travel aren't the best. So probably he was just still here and not really here like he would be in his role if he would already move to California. The other thing that worries me, a Disneyland Paris president who was seen in the parks, loved by casts, and taking selfies with, we all know what happened with Catherine Powell. So that's what makes me like being careful and what I'm hoping for. Because he's a nice guy, he's a great guy, he takes selfies, casts love him. Basically everything that Catherine Powell had in Disneyland Paris.
Yeah.
And look where she ended up. She's like on Airbnb.
So
working for
all
Airbnb. No.
all that, everything that you guys said is totally valid. Where I'm coming from in terms of my optimism is that if the cast members like him and he's focused on the cast are going to be then much happier in their roles, and that's going to make the guests therefore happier. So even if he can't do anything as far as, destruction of the parks or cheapening of the experience, I think it's still going to make the guest experience better because the cast are going to be happier. And so, that's kind of at least somewhat optimistic as opposed to, what we had a couple months ago. His absolutely actions remain to be seen in terms of what he can do for the parks, but what he can do for the cast, I think we already know about, and I think that's a positive step forward as well. All right, so let's talk about the opening of Walt Disney World. Everybody's been waiting for this news for 2.5 months now.
Jason, it opened in 1971. It's old news at this point.
Oh, shucks. I was just reading these brochures that I had that said coming in October, and I thought it was this October. I didn't realize it was October of 71. The reopening, actually, I was just reading like some eyes and ears from 1979. But anyway, some things in there I got to figure out what the heck they're talking about. But that's another topic for another day. The reopening. So as we talked about last week, Universal announced that they're reopening to the public on June 5th. In fact, tomorrow and Tuesday start team member previews, and then Wednesday and Thursday are annual pass holder previews, and then open to the public on June 5th. So we know that Universal's charging ahead with their reopening of the parks. And then Disney finally submitted plans to reopen. And their date, we were all kind of thinking, well, maybe it'll be like the middle of June or the end of June. July 11th. More than a week, or more than a month after Universal opened. Actually, what is it? It's like
1 month
5
after
weeks.
SeaWorld to the day.
And a month after SeaWorld opens. 5 weeks after Universal reopens. I was kind of hoping for like the middle of June because I've got a trip down on June 16th, and when Universal announced their opening, we were kind of confident that things were going to happen, and then July 11th kind of, I think, was a bit of a shock to a lot of people. Obviously, we knew that they weren't going to open, the day after Universal did, but certainly a couple weeks afterwards would be reasonable, but 5 weeks seems a lot. And then also, as we kind of figured this...
Yeah, you'll pass.
3 weeks for DVC, like you couldn't have a hotel and have the Disney hotel.
Yeah, so that's
experience.
something else we'll talk about. Is what exactly is that mean? But so Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom open on Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom open on July 11th. And we kind of knew that Epcot was going to be delayed. It turns out that Epcot and Studios are both delayed by 4 days. They're both opening
Yeah,
on
it's a lot
July.
shorter than we thought, probably.
July 15th. Well, I mean, we were thinking Epcot might not open until September.
I
was
don't think
kind of
anyone
personally
saw 4 parks opening within 1 week.
not on the same day,
No.
though. I mean, I was actually thinking Epcot wasn't going to open until Food and Wine Festival starts, because no one goes to Epcot when there's not a festival.
Isn't that July 15 by now?
Stealing my News
Yeah.
Tonight jokes.
And that's why Magic Kingdom had to open on July 11th, because that's the first Halloween party. But yeah, so again, more good news. The parks are finally reopening. They've also announced as as Shanghai Disneyland did and as Universal's doing, that reservations are going to be required to enter the parks. So not
Universal's
only will
not
it
doing
be-
reservations, only for pass.
No, just
Only
just
for the pass
previews.
holders.
Only for the preview.
Right.
Only for the preview. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Is Shanghai still doing reservations? Do we know?
Yeah. They are.
They are. Okay. So, I mean, Shanghai's been open for weeks now, and they're still doing reservations.
Yeah.
My
Apparently
guess,
they're much
and
easier to get though now.
well, that doesn't surprise me. And honestly, I think, Universal's not doing reservations because, as we saw with City Walk and as we saw with Disney Springs, the first day, all the bloggers come out, and then the next several days, it's pretty much dead. So I expect similar for the parks, honestly, and I expect that to be the case at Walt Disney World as well. There's plenty of people out there that are either saying, I'm not coming till there's a vaccine, or I'm not coming because I don't want to wear a mask, or I'm not coming because I don't want to get sick, or this and that. So there's plenty of people that are saying they're not coming, which
Good.
means it's... Well, what it means is that it's not going to be very difficult to control the capacity, and I think that's what Universal's kind of banking on. Is Universal doing anything like guaranteed admission for pass holders or
Resort
or
guests have
hotel
guaranteed
guests?
entry every day.
Yeah.
Resort guests, even for the
guests do.
preview days, are guaranteed entry. Yeah.
Okay, but not necessarily pass holders.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
No, but at
guess-
least they have a clear communication. That's something that everybody, people have awaited the moment to have a reopening date for so long. Disney announces a reopening date. At least when Universal did, you knew, like, oh, these are the dates, these are previews, and this is the opening date for the public. Now,
Right.
Disney
We just found
let
out today.
everybody hang.
Yeah, we just found out today, in fact, that Disney is probably going to have like pass holder preview dates, whether that's before July 11th or that starts on July 11th. We don't know.
Well,
Communication
they have Club
throughout
30.
this.
We knew Club 33 sent an email that there's a preview for them. And,
Well, of
yeah,
course.
we're doing a whole bunch of previews. Yeah. No, I wouldn't say it. Of course. I mean, Club 33 has been mismanaged since the beginning. A lot of members are quite angry at the lack of events. So it was not a foregone conclusion that they were going to get something special. So I think it's nice for them to know they're going to get. I know the general public won't care that Club 33 is getting something, but those people spend a lot of money and they never get anything for it really. So it's nice that they'll finally get something, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much popcorn you can eat to make up your $45,000. But I think I said, of course, because of course, if they're going to do an annual pass holder preview, that already includes the Club 33 members. So whether they have a separate preview or just at the same time as the annual pass holders or whatever, that still kind of remains to be seen.
I'm pretty sure
we
DVC will
don't
be
know.
included in that as well.
We don't know about DVC. We don't know about resort guests. We don't know about if there's reservations, how many days the previews are going to be, whether the previews
Do you get
are
one
before
as a
July
resort
11th.
guest?
We don't know anything.
No.
Right.
And that's
It's kind of
that's
like
the
they're
main
flying by the
concern.
seat of their pants. Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, Universal announced AP previews. Maybe we should do that. Okay, go ahead and announce it. Well, what are the details? I don't know. Like, they don't have any of this thought out in advance. They just really are flying by the seat of their pants, and they'll come up with the details later. They'll work out the logistics later. That's pretty much what happens with Disney on a regular basis, even when there's not a pandemic. So it doesn't surprise me at all that we don't have any details of how any of this is going to work. Just like the cancellation of the fast passes in the dining, which we'll get to a little bit later. They just announced they're canceling. They don't have any details about, rebooking. That'll come out at a future time.
In their defense, remember we're supposed to try to be positive on this show. In their defense, they don't have to.
We
write
are.
details
Universal's
about
opening this week. That's very positive.
It is very positive. But because Disney has more runway before July 11th, they don't have to necessarily release these details up front. They can theoretically spend more time thinking through the logistics of this and make a better experience. Whether they will or not is a question, but I am okay with them not necessarily announcing all the full set of details about how it's going to operate if they can take the time to make sure that it's managed properly.
Well, I totally agree with that. My thought is they had 10 weeks to think about it. And, only now they're coming up with, like, oh, we need to plan for this. Like, what have they been doing for the last 10 weeks is my question.
So I wonder if they went to a more quick opening timeline between July 11th and July 15th because of what Universal did. If that's a reaction to that, if their initial plans during that 10-week period was to stagger it out much more into the September timeframe.
I think in mid-June they were planning to open 1 to 2 parks. And then once Universal said, oh, we're opening all 3, I think then they were like, well, we got to rethink this a bit. We can't just reopen, 1 or 2 parks. They all got to come back. Yeah, I think plans definitely shifted. I don't think there's a chance that they were talking about opening all 4. The demand isn't there. It's not going to be there by July 15th either. But, I think they could have done 2 successfully, but instead they've decided, at least for appearance's sake, they're going to try to open 4.
But not the water parks. That's the difference yet, too, though.
No, they've decided that. I think they're waiting to see if that actually works. I think they're still on the fence. Also, their water parks aren't super popular. I mean, they pale in comparison popularity-wise. And if, honestly, if you're going to have resort pools open because resorts are open, then maybe you just want to focus on having those for your resort guests, and then you don't really need a water park. Your locals aren't really going to a water park anyway.
In the middle of the summer, I would go. I mean,
locals
that's
don't.
the time to go.
Locals do not. It's all Europeans.
Okay.
Europeans
So here's
and
the
South
question,
Americans. That's a Disney water park.
This question came up a couple days ago, and I don't remember whether it was in the chat or something. So you have a premium annual pass that includes water parks. Well, your pass is getting extended by the number of days the parks were closed, and we'll assume it's using July 15th as the calculation and not the 11th. But if the water parks stay closed, you paid to add water park admission to that pass. What's going to happen? Like, you're not getting a full year of water park admission if your pass expires.
They'll probably just
based
issue
on the
you a
dates.
water park annual pass with a new expiration.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
Well,
I can't imagine
you'll
you'll go to complain and be like, well, I didn't get these days of water parks. They're going to be like, too bad. They're not going to. They'll give you like the individual water park AP with whatever.
Okay.
Well,
the date is.
with the annual passes, the bigger question is, like, Shanghai extended their annual passes as long as you need reservations to go in the park. Like, as long as we don't know all the details, like, as local, I want to be able to go to the park maybe in the morning before work, maybe in the evening after work. With this reservation system, you never know, like, what parks. If you're in a resort, are you going to go into all the parks, only one? And
How's park hopping going to work?
There is no
That's
parking.
another question. Well, what about
There's no
I paid
park
for
hop.
tickets with park hopping? Like, I've got a 4-day ticket with park hopping. I paid extra for that.
The real question is what is the extension date? Is it going to be like Shanghai? Is it after the reservation period, which seems unlikely given that annual pass holders are going to get to go to these. So I don't know, but maybe it's like, hey, we need the money, so we'll extend you. Once we stop doing this system, we'll extend you whatever, but you can still come in the meantime a couple of times because we want you to buy food and merchandise and et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, is that especially if attendance is relatively low, they might do away with reservations altogether because
That's true. Within a week, we could probably go every day. Who knows?
Yep, exactly. Not only will they get to do away with reservations and less hassle for the locals, but that if that's when they start the clock ticking on the renewal of or on the expiration of the pass, then obviously the sooner the better in that case. So yeah, we'll have to see how this all plays out. Of course, we'll have our WDWNT reporters, and including, I assume, Tom, you're going on the 11th.
If I get a reservation.
We'll have people
we
there.
all have resort rooms. I know we all have a bunch of resort rooms in case. Because I think the real big question to me is when are they going to announce that a resort reservation gains you access to one reservation a day? Because it has to. Otherwise, who's going to travel here? Like, we're getting in the Magic Kingdom for one day and we're going to stay at Pop Century for a week. Like that, no one's going to do that. You have to have access to one park a day as a resort guest. I don't understand how else that could work. Because if not, no one's going to book a hotel room.
Right, exactly. But then again, they haven't announced that hotels are opening. So this kind of...
they did, but then they retracted because they got annoyed that people were booking them.
Jeez, who would have thought Disney gets annoyed when you book a hotel? Right?
Only when Tom Corliss has 3 concurrent reservations for July 11th do they get upset.
Well, I think they get upset when Tom Corliss has any reservations because then they know you're coming. But anyway.
Yeah.
It'll be all right, guys.
That's
Shop
sort of-
Disney's handling the reservation system. We'll be fine.
Get prepared for a park full of bots. There's no actual people.
But that sort of leads us into our next topic of discussion, which is DVC resorts are opening on June 22nd. What's that all about? So clearly, here's my thought on that. Clearly, they need to test out all of the new procedures, all the new cleaning procedures, and what better bunch of guinea pigs to do it on than DVC members, because they don't get daily housekeeping anyway. So that's a good idea. Also, DVC members, this is like pretending that DVC members are getting a perk, when really they're just being guinea pigs. But hey, DVC members will eat up anything that makes it seem like they're getting some kind of perk for their membership. And so June 22nd, DVC resorts are opening. It makes some sense that they need to test out their cleaning procedures and everything else. Restaurants in the resorts, it didn't specifically say that restaurants at the DVC resorts are going to open, but I kind of think, well, if you got a bunch of DVC members staying at your resort, they kind of need to eat somewhere. And if the parks aren't open, they all can't go to Disney Springs to eat. Especially when, Disney Springs closes at, 8 o'clock now?
7 o'clock now, thanks to the curfew.
This week. Yeah. I don't expect the curfew to last till June 22nd, but still.
No, I don't think so either.
So, yeah, I think restaurants at the DVC resorts are going to have to open on June 22nd, although nothing's been said specifically about that. And see, David, that's the kind of question, like, obviously, if they're going to make an announcement that hotels are going to open on June 22nd, like, people are going to go in assuming the restaurants are open, but they haven't said anything one way or the other. So,
I don't think they're going to win if you're not a resort guest.
Right?
I'm
like,
not
they
sure.
kind of have... Yeah. But they kind of had to figure out, are we going to open resorts without restaurants? That's kind of dumb. But then again, if they were going to open the restaurants, you'd think they would have added that into the details, and they haven't.
They don't know. I don't think they know, so they couldn't say. Honestly, as a DVC member, I don't understand why you would book anything for June 22nd unless you're making a trip to Universal.
Well, and so, when I was...
There's some things to do in town, though. I think that's the thing. I don't think this is a perk. I think DVC members have been trying to argue with them, like, stuff in Florida's open, and I pay all this money every year to have access to hotels, these hotels in Florida. When are you going to open for us? And I think if you come June 22nd, Universal's open, SeaWorld's open, Disney Springs is open, the golf courses have been open at Walt Disney World. The Kennedy Space Center's open in some capacity. Legoland's open. There's stuff to do here, and there's stuff to do even on Disney property. Not much, but there's some. So I think this is just a case of, like, people have been locked in for months. They want to start blowing their DVC points. Maybe they just want to get to Orlando early and start doing stuff.
Right.
Well,
I think
here's
you're right.
the bigger-
I think the inventory of points is also a driving factor.
That's
they have
a huge
large
problem.
backlog of points now that haven't been used.
Yeah.
They need to start
Yep.
using those, or they're going to have capacity.
That is the only reason to open the 22nd. Like, I don't even, like, saying, like, oh, we need to try how the cleaning process is going to go. You can try cleaning processes on an empty room. There's no need for an actual guest. You can try out seating in
but then the room
restaurants.
won't get dirty.
Yeah, but it really doesn't matter. You can clean it, and you're still going to do it. When the store opens, they're not going to say, like, oh, we're going to have a soft opening to see how we're going to clean it. There's a cleaning procedure, so you can do that without guests in the room. The only reason why they do it is they have so many points that are open, and they don't know what to do with it. Now, at this point, you're already limited in borrowing only 50% of your points to limit that amount of points that is out there.
Yeah.
I think they don't have another choice.
I mean, there's approximately, essentially about 20% of a year's worth of points are out there able to be used. And so the way that DVC works, for listeners who might not quite understand all the intricacies, is that there's essentially enough points in the system that everyone who owns DVC can spend all of their points for a given year at a time. So, I own 300 points. I can spend 300 points every year to go to Disney World. And because of the laws of Florida with timeshares, you can't sell more points than you have inventory. So the amount of inventory that exists, which is, resort rooms per night, is pretty closely matched to the number of points they sold. They do keep some inventory back for refurbishments and stuff, but it's still like 95% of the inventory sold. And so now we're in a position where we have approximately 20% of a year's worth of inventory that has to get used, and we don't have the inventory to support that, because the resorts have all been closed. So, I mean, you're certainly going to have people who aren't ready to come down yet, but I think there's enough people out there that have points, that are willing to travel. They've got to start getting people to spend DVC points as soon as possible to offset the huge amount of points that are going to be a surplus in the system with no inventory to match. So that we'll talk about this more. We're going to have the DVC discussion in a lot more detail in an upcoming show, hopefully next week or the week after. And it's not Marcy's fault, I was told to say. The DVC discussion. The DVC discussion we will have in more detail, and we'll have David and Marcy on here to talk about all the details of their policies now with the 50% and the booking and not borrowing and this and that. We'll go into that in much more detail in the coming weeks. But I think for the most part, but see, Disney, I think, is a master of giving people things that look like perks and making them feel good about it, and it really is good for the Disney company and not necessarily for the people. So this is another instance where, Disney's like, hey, DVC members, we're going to open the resorts early for you because you're special. But it's really just that they need people to start burning points because there's such a surplus now. On
the other hand, it's, for me, like, personally, I have my room at the Grand Floridian on June 22nd. The only reason why I spend points on the Grand Floridian, because I think it's a beautiful resort. I think that a lot of the DVC resorts are beautiful resorts. They're all deluxe resorts. And if you go with parks being open, you do not enjoy your hotel and your resort as you do if the parks are open. For me, we've been to Tootsum on City Walk yesterday. We've been to the Boathouse last week. With 50% capacity, these places, my personal opinion, for me, are way more enjoyable.
They're absolutely,
at half capacity. And that's what I wanted to see, the 22nd, the first day, I know people are going to wait until the parks are open, even a week before the official reopening of July 11. People would try to come in to see like, oh, maybe there will be previews, maybe not. That's not the case for June 22nd. I just want to go there and enjoy the resorts again. And especially because you have like 3 resorts close to each other, like walk over to the Polynesian, take some time there, just like let it sink in again before you go into the parks. So I'm really looking forward to June 22nd. And I had
I agree totally. That's kind of why I'm saying, they're almost gonna have to have the restaurants open. They're gonna have to have the pools open at those resorts because you're gonna have
restaurants
people
are going to
there.
be open. They're not announcing it because they don't want people who aren't resort guests. I guarantee you. I also don't think they're going to have regular menus. I think things are going to be altered, but they're going to be open. At least some restaurants. Yeah.
But I mean, it would certainly make me as a DVC member much more comfortable making a booking if I knew I was going to be able to eat at the restaurant in the hotel. They could certainly say we're not taking reservations. They could certainly say resort guests only or resort guests get priority seating or something. I mean, they could say all that and put it out there. That's not something out of the question.
They could only let resort guests in. You don't have to let other guests in. You can do like
I think that's what they're going to do.
I mean, you check the resort reservation at the front door of the hotel. You don't have to let people in to shop. They send them to Disney Springs to shop.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to open the stores. I don't really think the stores at hotels are going to open.
They might have to open the stores at the DVC resorts because they're the ones that have all the, food and
just
stuff.
anyone that has grab and go and yeah, that's true.
They'll open the grab and go stores or whatever, but not every store.
Yeah.
But yeah, Axel, I agree with you that I think the time between June 22nd and July 11th is going to be a great time to visit a DVC resort and have.
Indeed.
It'll probably be the only time in your life you can have a relaxing vacation at Walt Disney World.
Without a doubt. I will be able to feed the gators without other tourists.
Wow.
Like, I couldn't be happier.
And you'll get great pictures of it, too, without people in the background messing up your pictures.
I mean, the best thing that like, honestly, we chose the Grand Floridian, but if you're at the Polynesian, if you have a bungalow right now for June 22nd, that is going to be the best experience ever. I get it. You don't have the fireworks.
Though.
No fireworks, yeah.
But you don't have the worst thing that happens at the Polynesian is every 5 to 10 minutes, you have that ferry blowing the horn from morning until evening. That's horrible.
Not bad.
No. If you
get a bungalow.
For those of us who grew up with a subway going behind our house every 15 minutes, I think
if you get a bungalow that's way on like the west side of the setup, you're pretty far away from the ferry. But no, I understand where you're coming from, Axel. Totally. It's a trade-off, though. You don't get the ferry horn, but you also don't get the
those
fireworks.
noises. I want to hear the train whistle. I want to hear all those things.
I mean, I get it, but that's not how I would choose to spend my DVC points. Absolutely, it would be a relaxing vacation, and you'll get a great experience. But if you have a small number of points, where I'm going with
and it's definitely not something you're going to want to pack up the family and take the kids. I mean,
it's different if you're local, sure.
It's different if you're local, and it's different if you don't have kids.
It's just going to be a bunch of us local idiots in all these hotels. Axel will be the only person at the Grand Floridian. I'll be the only person at the Polynesian. It's going to be great.
I'll be at the Polynesian.
A bunch of childless millennials running around the resorts. Great.
Yeah,
locally, but I was bored.
I'm not childless, and I'm not a millennial.
You're going to be hearing vloggers out on the patio or on the deck.
Vloggers on the vloggers blowing their horn.
So I think I think Disney Vacation Club Resorts opening June 22nd makes sense. It's obviously going to be good when the parks open on July 11th because, as we noted in their announcement, initially the announcement said the resorts and the parks were going to open on July 11th, and then they changed it. They took out the part about resorts and just talked about the theme parks opening on July 11th and 15th. But they took out any mention of the resorts opening on those dates, and that sent a lot of people into a tizzy on the internet, trying to figure out what exactly is going to happen. Are the parks going to be open for DVC members only? Are they going to be able to get reservations at a later date? You know, who knows? And then, you know, is this tied into the whole cancellation of dining and fast passes? I don't know. Maybe they're connected. Maybe they're not. So there's a lot of things up in the air in terms of July 11th. You know, we initially thought that monorail and ferry service wasn't going to be available, but now we think there is. You know, so there's still a lot of unanswered questions in terms of all this.
Well, they still haven't canceled the hotels, and I think that, as Tom
They
said,
haven't canceled the hotels, they've canceled dining.
yeah,
But they're not
at
letting
some
you make
point-
any more new hotel reservations.
Yeah, and then as Tom said, like, I think at some point they realize, like, oh, we've put it out and are booking to be there that first day, and we know we can't handle that capacity. And then they just took it away. They took it off the website and see what's going to happen. I think they're going to wait it out. I think that does not mean that none of the resorts are going to open. I think they will not reopen at 100% capacity. I also believe that the resorts having a DVC part will open first, because like you have to open anything. It's same with the Polynesian. The lobby, everybody's there, the restaurants are open. So if you're going to open a hotel, of course you'll be able to go to the Polynesian.
Right. It makes complete sense that the first hotels that are going to open. I mean, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that we expected that the first hotels that were going to open were going to be the Magic Kingdom resorts, but they all happen to have DVCs attached too. So it makes total sense that the first resorts to open are going to be the ones that have DVCs attached, because you need all the infrastructure there. It just so happens that those are the deluxe resorts that make Disney the most money, so it makes sense too.
And now no one will get daily housekeeping.
I mean, people have been selling back their daily housekeeping for $15 a night or $10 a night or whatever for a couple of years now.
I'm on
been a very
vacation. Clean
popular.
my goddamn room.
That's been a very popular thing for people to sell back their housekeeping for a gift card. So
I'm with you,
know,
Tom. That's worth $15 a day to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to disagree at all. But what I think is that as you know, and we talked about this before too, that with all of the cast members furloughed, we knew it's not like they could just flip the switch and have 100% of them come back on a given day. It's going to take some time to get everybody back, and that
would be as hard as flipping a switch and everyone getting unemployment when they're supposed to. Both of those would be incredibly hard.
That's a different switch.
Things to do. You know.
Yeah, you would think that would be hard. But so I mean, we totally expect that you can't open all the resorts on the same day simply because you're not going to have the cast members there to accomplish that.
No, and I think they do realize that they will not open everything. As they send out an email to all cast members, even if you're at the resorts, if you want to go and stick on a fake mustache and go work in Mexico, because they need the people in Epcot. So, like, they know that some hotels won't open because they're going to take the cast members away to get Epcot up and running, because Epcot without internationals and college programs, like is nothing.
Well, I mean,
There's nobody.
all of Walt Disney World without international program and college program people is going to be at sub capacity, and so yeah, I mean, obviously they're going to have to reallocate cast members all around, but certainly Epcot World Showcase is essentially going to be empty unless they reallocate cast members there. So, but yeah, I mean, there's plenty of college program cast members that do housekeeping at resorts, and so yeah, that's another issue that they're not going to be able to open all the resorts, because not only do they not have enough cast members coming back, but they also aren't going to have any of these international or college program cast members till at least August. All right.
And they need to staff a lot of booths for food and wine.
For food and wine,
Booths?
that's right. I mean,
Oh, booths.
Booths?
they could actually, they might as well just close most of the attractions and just staff the booths. That's my thought.
Didn't they already do that?
That's how we call that Epcot.
I mean, more of the, like, Oh Canada, I'm thinking particularly. And Awesome Planet, they might as well close that one.
You mean Canada far and wide,
Whatever they call it now, I don't care.
featuring Central
Universe of
Canada.
Energy. It's Universe of Energy as far as I'm concerned. But all right, so we've kind of covered the reopening. We've covered the hotels, at least as much as we know about the hotels. The next thing that I think was really a huge uproar, probably more so than anything else, any of these announcements, was the theme park reservation system that they're putting in place required them to cancel all fast pass selections and dining reservations and experience reservations. So I'm going to read this email because it's a pretty interesting email that most people who had any kind of reservations got. As we plan for the reopening of our Disney resort hotels and theme parks, we are keeping the well-being of our guests and cast in mind. And we're here to help you as we introduce new procedures focused on delivering an enjoyable and magical experience for everyone who visits. To manage attendance and foster physical distancing during this unprecedented time, we will be changing and suspending some park experiences, like fireworks. In addition, we will also be introducing a new theme park reservation system. Period. That's all they say about the theme park reservation system, is that it's new. Then the email goes on, unfortunately, these new measures have required us to cancel any FastPass Plus selections you may have made. We recognize the inconvenience this poses, and we're deeply sorry. Then it goes on, however, because you have valid theme park admission, you will have access to the theme park reservation system before new tickets are sold to other guests. So that means if you booked a package that includes tickets, or you have an annual pass, which is sort of separate, but and we know annual pass holders will get access to the reservation system too. So at the same time as this email came out, they completely shut down the ticket selling on the website. They completely shut down any bookings of things like any of the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, or H2O Glow Nights, or Early Morning Magic, or Villains.
After Dark.
After hours.
Villains After Dark.
After
Yes.
Hours.
I keep wanting to say Villains Unleashed. Like, that's ingrained into my head. Villains Unleashed. Anytime I think about a Villains After Hours event. So because you have valid theme park admission, you will have access to the theme park reservation system before new tickets are sold to other guests. Obviously, that makes sense to sort of be able to gauge demand before they open ticket sales. There's nothing you need to do at this time. We'll be contacting you soon with details on this new system once we figure it out ourselves. So that's the email. Then it goes on to say, at this time, while systems update, we are temporarily suspending all modifications. However, you have the option of canceling your entire reservation. So this is talking about resort reservations. You can't change a resort reservation or a package reservation, but you can certainly cancel it altogether. Then they go on to say, this is my favorite line of the entire email. We're putting great thought into helping you return to the magic and appreciate your patience. It satisfies me greatly that they're putting great thought into helping me return to the magic. I don't know who wrote this email, but man, I'll just leave it at that. So this really set the Twitterverse afire with cancellation of fast passes and dining reservations, and people were, I mean, there weren't that many people that had fast passes made, although I did, but parks weren't going to be open. When I had my resort reservation for June 16th, and I had made fast passes for June 16th and the following days that I was going to be there. But without any parks open, and nothing else being open, obviously those all got canceled. So that makes sense. So really, with a 60-day Fast Pass window, there weren't many people that had Fast Pass reservations that got canceled. But with dining reservations at a 180-day window, there are plenty of people that had dining reservations from now until the end of the year, almost, and they're all getting canceled. So imagine you booked a package, you booked a package back in January or February for Thanksgiving. You're having a big family vacation for Thanksgiving. It's getting canceled. All your dining plan, everything's getting canceled. Can't make fast passes. You can't even change that booking now. All you can do is cancel it if you want. If you had a July 4th holiday or something scheduled, or not, well, July 4th is too soon. If you had a end of July vacation plan, people plan their vacations a year out. You had an end of July vacation planned. You could have made all your dining reservations at the end of February, and had that all lined up and all set, and boom, it's gone. Completely gone. So naturally, as you might expect...
I want to ask a stupid question.
Okay.
Who on earth thought they were going to keep all their reservations? Given what we've gone through, why was this... Once they announced, you're moving to this reservation system and all these things, you don't know where restaurants are going to be open. Who knows if they're going to have any of these add-on things?
Is all, well...
who knows?
Right.
So why... I don't understand everyone being offended. They're going to wipe everything clean because they don't know what's going to be open or who's going to be there or what parts you're going to have a reservation for. So
Tom, I
don't understand why
you don't understand people getting offended on Twitter no matter what happens. You can say the most innocuous thing and people get offended on Twitter. So why that is...
Yeah, we lost 200 followers for saying we're not racist, so I'm very confused by people in general.
Yep, absolutely. But Kevin's messaging me that it's about time for a commercial break. So before we go any further, because I have an answer to your stupid question, Tom.
Wow.
It may be a stupid
answer, you would.
But I have an answer. Of course I do. Any question I have an answer to. But before we get into that, we're going to take a bit of a commercial break, so you guys, as well as us, can go grab a drink or something, and we'll be back right after these messages from our sponsors.
4 panelists, 30 minutes, 1 week in Disney Parks news. This is Parks Center. On Parks Center, the panel and I cover the top 7... 7? Yeah, 7 Disney Park stories of the past week. From attraction news to transportation scandals to new food and merchandise, we'll cover it all in 30 minutes or less. You can watch us stream live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. at www.ntunes.com, watch episodes on demand at youtube.com/wdwnt, or subscribe to the audio version of the show on your favorite podcast app.
Dreamfinders is WDW News Today's podcast all about the creative culture surrounding Disney parks. Authors, Imagineers, dancers, actors, photographers, filmmakers, and a whole lot more have all stopped by to chat about how Disney has inspired their artistic work.
But I still remember sitting in conference tables and looking across at Michael and Jeffrey Katzenberg and this sort of little 6-year-old inside of me going, what in heaven's name is going on here?
And we're off and running, and Tony needs someone to lay it out for him. And there's no architect available. So the next thing I know, I'm laying out the pavilion.
I got to tell you, I have not enjoyed a podcast so much. It's just a warm conversation, and warm and intelligent conversation, which you don't find that often in podcasts.
Dreamfinders. Episodes drop every other Tuesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher.
WDW News Tonight is our weekly comedy show combining the news of the week, comedy segments, thoughtful discussions, insane characters, parody commercials, games, and more. Watch live on Thursdays at 9 p.m. and become a Wigs member to get access to a bonus post show. Watch WDW News Tonight episodes anytime and live on YouTube, or get the audio-only version on iTunes and other podcast services.
Welcome back to Pressing Issues. I'm your host, Jason Diffendal, for the next hour of our show or thereabouts, depending on how much Tom talks. But anyway, let's get back right into things. Tom had a stupid question, and I'm going to have an answer for him. So, Tom, you asked, why did people think they were going to be able to keep their dining reservations? Well, so here's my answer, and maybe. Or any reservations. Here's my answer. Maybe it's accurate. Maybe it's wrong. I don't know. But here's my thought. You book a Disney trip for August, and you book it in February. Disney has ingrained into people's minds the need to plan so far ahead that you need to be able to book your dining a full 6 months before you set foot in Florida. They have pushed this window out over and over. There are certain things that you have to book 365 days in advance. Disney has themselves conditioned people to book these things so far out. So that's number one. So in February, you plan a trip for August. The parks are reopen in July. Great. Your trip's still on. You're ready to go. And then, boom, your carefully planned out days are all now jumbled. Not necessarily. I mean, obviously the park reservation system may have
your
something to
whole
do
life
with that.
is jumbled since February, though. So I don't know why
That's
you're
true.
surprised
And
that
so
your Disney vacation plans are.
Well, because you planned the vacation for August, and Disney World's going to be open in August, so you thought, geez, maybe one thing survived the jumbling.
Everyone thought it was going to reopen April 1st. Everyone's talking to me at Epcot on March 15th. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I don't know. I don't know about this.
But as long as your reservation was for after the parks reopened, you really had no reason to think that your dining reservation was going to get canceled. Now, here's the thing. Your hotel reservation is not getting canceled. They're not taking new hotel reservations right now, but if you had a hotel reservation for August, it still exists. It's still there. It's still in the system.
You would have a right to be mad if they canceled your hotel reservation. But these other ones, given that the entire structure of a theme park visit is going to be different, no matter when you visit the rest of this year. I don't know why.
I don't disagree.
And this wasn't an announcement they made at the same time as when they announced that they were moving to this reservation system when they reopened in July. That was announced first. And so my thought is, in the time between that announcement and this announcement, why were you surprised that you're not going to have fast passes, that maybe you're not going to get to go to a Villains After Hours or like some tour at Animal Kingdom or one of those things. Like, why are you surprised that those things no longer exist?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that Villains After Hours is canceled. I'm not surprised that Early Morning Magic is canceled. I'm not surprised that H2O Glow Nights are canceled. I'm not surprised that all the DVC member magic things are canceled. What I am surprised is that if you made a resort reservation for a stay at the Boardwalk, for example, and then you made a dining reservation for dinner at Flying Fish on one of those days, why would you expect that if the hotel is open and you're staying there and your reservation is still intact, why would you expect that you couldn't dine at Flying Fish? Why would
because
you
a global
expect that?
pandemic began and Flying Fish and the whole hotel closed. So here's
But the hotel will be open.
We are now 75 days or more, roughly 75 days past when the park's closed, right? The window's 160. It's a fair amount of the window. So if you booked anything after, like, if you booked anything from March 13th on, you knew there was a great chance that whatever you were booking was not going to matter. So if I booked, like, in January or February, like, sure, maybe I still don't know that I could be surprised, because by March it became clear, like, oh, maybe things aren't going to be what I planned. So that's why I'm surprised. Like, there was a chance you weren't even going to get to go to Disney World at all.
Oh, for sure.
And so why people are now like, I don't think it's even worth going now. And
I think people would understand that. I think if you booked in the middle of January a trip for 6 months out, and that would be the middle of July, and you booked a hotel and you booked dinner at the Flying Fish, and the hotel is going to be open, and Disney World's going to be open, and the Flying Fish is going to be open, why would you expect them to cancel your Flying Fish reservation? Because it has nothing to do with the park reservation system, because it's not in a park. I can totally understand that they would cancel reservations at Crystal Palace because that's in a park, and you don't know that you're going to be able to get in that park that day, so that makes sense. Flying Fish for dinner, the hotel's going to be open, the restaurant's going to be open, you had a reservation, they canceled it, but they didn't really have a good reason to cancel that restaurant reservation in particular, because the restaurant's going to be open and you're still going to be there. Your hotel reservation is still there.
They have no other choice. So, like, we were going to try to stay
Here's
positive.
the problem.
In my positive mind, I was like, once Orange County said, like, okay, we're going to start reopening and we're going to reopen restaurants at 25%. I was like, okay, the county, our state is reopening, so Disney will follow soon. At that point in time, even if I was the positive man himself that said, like, the resorts are going to open in 2 weeks, if you have restrictions of restaurants that are down to capacity at 25 or 50%, we know that some dining locations in Disney, take, for instance, Ohana, are booked for a full 100% months in advance. You know, even if the resorts open tomorrow, you know that they won't be able, they're not allowed to have 100% capacity. So at that point, what are you going to do? You cannot do like, okay,
but here's the
half
argument.
of those people can stay, the other can't. So you need to cancel everything, start over fresh, because you don't know what's going to happen within this and a month. Maybe we'll be in the same situation still in August, that we're still at 50 or 75%.
At 50%.
capacity.
Right. But here's the thing. Of the 100% of Ohana reservations for a given day at the end of July, how many of those people are actually still coming to Disney World? How many of those people canceled their hotel reservation already because they're not coming? That could be half of them. So the half that still want to come at the end of July should be able to keep their Ohana reservation because, yeah, the restaurant's operating at 50% capacity, but half the people aren't going to come anyway. Like, they don't know because they don't have a really good way to connect hotel reservations and restaurant reservations. They have no idea. Like, they could have canceled all dining reservations for everyone who didn't have a hotel booking at the same time. That would mean that all the locals would be canceled. that
you don't know if all the
we knew
hotels
at this
are gonna
point
open.
because this announcement came out a week ago. We knew that at least some of the hotels were going to open.
Like
They announced it before they retracted it.
We talked about it last week, like with the talks of the NBA coming to Orlando, they're going to need like the capacity. And we said it last week, like, oh, could you imagine doing Boardwalk? So even if you take that into consideration, that a whole hotel or multiple hotels will be filled by the NBA, the on-site restaurants will not be accessible for anybody else. And if
Why
you
not?
go to a hotel, and because they won't let people mingle with the NBA stars. That's my
They
guess.
shouldn't let the
And
NBA eat at Flying Fish.
And even if you are going to...
I had a reservation at Flying Fish. They canceled my reservation, and now they're going to let these NBA people eat at Flying Fish, and I'm not allowed to when I had a reservation.
Jason's
6 months
passion
ago?
informs me that Jason booked a Flying Fish and is mad that they
Yes.
canceled his Flying Fish.
So let me full disclosure here. I did not book Flying Fish, and honestly, I think this cancellation of all the restaurant and dining plans makes 100% complete sense. So I am in agreement with you, Tom, but because you asked a stupid question, I had to come up with an answer, and so my answer was phrased to answer your question to make me look like I was in opposition to what you were saying. But in reality, I think it's 100% makes total sense because A, you don't know if these... Part of the problem is they don't know. They can't connect the hotel reservation with a dining reservation. So they don't know if people who canceled their hotels had dining reservations or not. That's problem number one. Because if they knew that, they could just cancel the dining reservations of people that canceled the hotels, and then they would be under 50% capacity. But hell, they can't figure out that people that booked hotels and then canceled them still have fast passes. They didn't figure that out until a couple months ago. So the problem is their technical systems between dining and resort reservations don't talk to each other anywhere near enough for them to be able to come out with any better way than to just cancel everything outright. And that, I think, is the problem, and that's my argument as to why you wouldn't have necessarily expected this, although you should have expected it, and I think it makes perfect sense. But the problem comes down to a technological barrier that Disney doesn't have the systems in place to overcome.
Even if they did have that data intelligence, I'm not sure they could make that assumption that if you canceled your room reservation, you also want to cancel your
no, but
dining reservation.
I'm not saying they had to assume that you could. I'm saying if you canceled your hotel reservation, they would just cancel your dining reservation. That makes sense. They don't have to assume that you want to cancel your dining reservations. They're just going to do it. It's going to be resort guests get priority at dining, just like resort guests get priority for extra magic hours and everything else. Like, they could easily come out and say, we're not going to allow dining in any of our restaurants unless you have a resort reservation. So that's the point of view I was coming from, where no, they don't need to assume that you're going to cancel your dining as well. Maybe you got a really good rate at the Best Western, but they could come out with a policy that says because dining locations are only operating at 50% capacity, that they're only going to open them to resort guests. They could certainly do that.
But that is a level of business intelligence Disney has not demonstrated.
Absolutely.
Before. So we should not assume that they. So and I think you said that, Jason. To be fair,
Yeah,
I
that
think
just proves that they are going to wing it.
So I think
They don't know what to do.
play the advocate for those on Twitter, I think it is okay for them to express disappointment that their reservations were canceled. Yes, it is sad that they're being canceled, but to express outrage at the company for doing this, I think is completely misguided, and I think Tom made that point. This is what had to happen. This is the only way they can operate. They had to clear out the queue and start fresh. And just because your reservation is canceled does not mean that you cannot go to those places. There will be a new system put in place, new reservations. Hopefully everyone that wants one gets one, but there's no guarantee for that. So Just,
Right.
you know,
And so
I understand expressing disappointment, but to say the company is wrong is not an accurate statement.
Right. I totally agree with you, David. And here's the thing. I gave Kevin this idea last week after the show that one of these days, and we could just do this as an ongoing thing. It doesn't have to be a whole separate discussion. But I wanted to talk about what positive things might come out of this whole situation, the closure, the pandemic. What positive things might happen? Well, one is that everybody who booked a Disney dining plan got it canceled. To me, that's a great, absolutely great positive outcome, because obviously that had to happen, because you can't, if you have restaurants at 50% capacity, you can't handle that many diners. That's fine. To me, that's great. I assume people that booked the Disney dining plan and got it canceled are not thinking that's a great outcome, but to me, that's a great outcome. What else is apparent at this point is that and they've said this, that going forward, dining reservations will only be available at the 60-day mark, not the 180-day mark. That is another great thing that I hope stays the policy even after things return to a much more normal state. Because there's no need to make a dining reservation at 180 days. Usually at 180 days, I don't even know if I'm coming to Florida. So,
but some people do.
Oh, some people do. That's fine.
You're creating the same situation that is the problem on Shop Disney. If Shop Disney released the items without announcement in the morning hours between like midnight and 8 a.m., you have all this time that people can wake up and get stuff, and just that 10 a.m. release is terrible. That was the problem with the 60-day. I remember when it was 60 days, and it sucked, because by 60 days everyone knew they were going to Disney World, and you tried to call or book online or whatever. It was a mess. And so doing 180 days meant, like, if you knew you were traveling more than 6 months out, then you could get your stuff right away. But then, like, those people in that 3, 4, 5 months, like, even if you decided later, there was not this, you didn't have to fight. You could go, I could decide, like, it's 4 months out, it's 1 o'clock on a Wednesday. I'm like, let me see what's available. And I know I can get the stuff for my trip at that point. I don't have to, like, mark my calendar and all these things. And you could still get, like, with that month or two, you know, the last month
like
or two.
Axel said, you couldn't
you
get
could get
Ohana.
Royal Table, and that's not true. I got 4 or 5 o'clock Ohanas all the time.
Yeah, but who eats at 4 or 5 o'clock?
People
Well,
in
okay,
Florida.
so that's
not
a
dinner.
valid point.
I mean,
so that's a valid point.
We've been on the other side of the spectrum. Like, now it's fun to be locals, but I remember the first time we came, we booked a year in advance, even a bit over, and for me, the 180 days is like, you're getting a step closer to a vacation that you are looking forward. It's like, 180 days, restaurant time, 60 days, fast pass time. But those 180 days are also a thank you, a recognition for a commitment you are giving to the Walt Disney World Resort, because you are committed to come to this place and to spend your money. You could have gone a lot of other places, but you committed to pay a hotel far in advance to come to this place. So by opening those reservations, I think it's more like, there you go. Here you have the chance to go to a restaurant without the stress of a 60-day mark, as Tom says.
Okay, so here's my argument then, Axel, is that you said that you booked your resort reservation a year in advance. Why not just open dining reservations a year in advance? Because you booked the resort, you know you're coming. Why make you wait till 180 days? Because the 180-day window is just as stressful as the 60-day window for people that are trying to get things like Cinderella's Royal Table. Why not just take that further and open the dining reservations at a year instead of 180 days?
I mean, I think they have to draw a line, and I don't disagree. you could say like, okay, I'm booking today and I want to get restaurants, I'm going to book them. But on the other hand, like, how far in advance can you know where to eat, what to do? I think those 180
Well, you know where you're
days are just
staying.
like, you know where you're staying, but it's not like you want to stay. The first time we came down for 3 weeks. I mean, it's a long flight. So we were here 3 weeks. So we had dining, and we had the dining plan. So we knew we had to eat. And I think with the dining plan canceled, it's less stress because we know we've paid for that dining plan. You have those credits. So you want to spend them, and you want to spend them in a place that you are going to enjoy them. So you want to make sure that you have that booking. And it doesn't matter if it's a year, 180 days, or 200 days. You just want to make sure if you commit by coming here, that you have the dining reservations that you really want. And I would be more upset by having everything still ongoing, not being canceled, come down, go to Ohana with my reservation that I have since 180 days, and that they say like, sorry, sir, we're at capacity. We can't sit you down. But I had it like 180 days ago. You can't.
So the
So
other thing
Now it's a fresh
agree with
start
that.
for everyone.
I
The only
agree.
thing I'll say to your point is, until the park schedules are released, we don't know where we're going to be on a specific day, and until that point, it's tough to make dining reservations. But they don't align. now
Absolutely, I
anyway,
agree.
so.
Well, I agree. I agree with that too, David. I'd say, although it's much easier to make a dining reservation for Flying Fish than it is for Crystal Palace, because you don't. It doesn't matter what park you're in. You can go to Flying Fish.
Which is an injustice, by the way. But keep going.
Well, so is Crystal Palace for that matter. But
Exactly.
funny
is
aside, my youngest daughter, Lindsay, came to me the other day, and she's like, "Daddy, I made a list of all the places I want to eat when we go to Disney World." This is Lindsay that doesn't like coming to Disney World, but she's excited about going in August because she hasn't been there in so long. She's like, "I made a list. Here's what's on my list." She had the Wave, she had Ohana, and she had Chef Mickey's. And I'm like, well, how about I veto Chef Mickey's? And she didn't like that. And then she goes on more, and then she goes Rainforest Cafe, and I'm like, I'm going to either veto Chef Mickey's or Rainforest Cafe. You can't have both. So that's fine. Then I told her if we go to 1900 Park Fair, she'll get to meet Alice, and that made her happy. But she's picking out these restaurants, and I'm like, Chef Mickey's is terrible. So if you want to talk about injustices, that's the biggest one. But anyway, I digress.
So on that note, Jason, just to add, Chef Mickey's, and that's not the same for Park Fair because we love Park Fair. I would love Park Fair to be without characters. I would enjoy it more.
Oh yeah,
but
agreed.
Chef Mickey's is there because of the characters, and the kids love it. With character dining,
But Lindsay doesn't like
character
characters.
dining being canceled, so no more
she does.
characters. And how are you?
Oh, Chef
going to
Mickey's might
handle-
actually be decent.
Well, but how are you going to handle a buffet during a pandemic?
I don't know.
This
Nobody's figured out the
People are
buffet.
going to have to ask you. They're going to give you a list of stuff, and you just keep telling the server what you want.
They're just gonna, or they're gonna do it like Ohana, family style, or whatever. But Lindsay didn't pick any of those restaurants because they're character dining. Like I asked her about Ohana, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Ohana," and I'm like, "Well, that's Stitch is there. Do you care?" And she's like, "I don't care about Stitch." She just wanted to go to Ohana, so she could care less about most characters. And that's not why she picked Chef Mickey. She just actually thought Chef Mickey's was good. So I just set her straight. But no, I mean, my personal thought is that all of the buffets are going to turn into family style like Ohana is or like Whispering Canyon is. I don't think they have another option at this point.
I would like
but
that
we'll
even
talk about
better.
that when we get... Oh, I would too. I think the food quality is going to go up when that happens, especially at 50% capacity. You know, if the food in the buffet is bad to begin with, imagine it sitting there for twice as long because the restaurant's at 50% capacity.
Well, I mean,
so,
at this rate, we'll be at 75 or 100% because Disney is just waiting to mid-July to open. We've gone
I don't
from
know,
25
though. Like, do you
to
think
50
restaurants will be
in
at
2
100%
weeks.
capacity? You
Not
think it'll
100%,
take
but
that
I see them
long?
going
I mean,
up. I see them going up to 75 at the beginning of July.
I don't think anybody knows whether that's going to be able to happen or not, because nobody knows what the whether the infection rate's going to increase when all this happens. I think, I mean, if enough people in Orlando go to Universal in June, I think you could see higher COVID infection rates in July, and restaurants aren't going to get above 50% till maybe September, October. I think that's very likely. Maybe not very likely, but I think it's certainly a possibility. So I would honestly be surprised if we're at 100% capacity for restaurants before October, November timeframe. But anyway, that's just my thought. But yeah, so I mean, obviously character interactions are going to be vastly different, and I've told people for years, I'm like, if you want to meet the characters, the best way to do it is character dining, because A, you've got to eat anyway. Sure, the character meal costs more than a regular meal, but you save 2 hours in the Magic Kingdom standing in lines in the heat, and you can go on more rides. So it's absolutely worth it to do character dining if those are the characters that your kids want to see.
Well, now they're going to do none of those.
Yeah, so I think
dining, there's no meet and greets.
I mean, people are talking about, I'm not coming to Disney World because I don't want to wear a mask. That's going to ruin the magic. Well, let me tell you, no fireworks, no parades, and no characters is going to ruin the magic a hell of a lot more than wearing a mask is going to ruin the magic. So
I haven't been outside in months. Magic is being outside doing something.
So, what is your thought? Like, just like to pick your brain, we've seen on the Asia sites still dining with a physical distance. With the restaurants being at 50% capacity, the excuse of there's too many people, we can't do that, isn't really in place. So why are they
for
able
characters,
to
you
do
mean?
So yes. So and dining, so not meet and greets, because there's character dining in Hong Kong.
Shanghai.
Both.
Is there Hong Kong too?
I think.
Yeah. At the hotel. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Shanghai
why,
opened a long time ago, character dining, but.
So why can they do it there, and why is this such an issue here, even more than a month before opening?
I don't know. That's a really good question. There's certainly with 50% capacity, you could certainly take more time with the characters. You could, sanitize their faces that kids like to touch or whatnot in between tables or something. I think it's probably twofold. One is it's just easier not to have characters yet, and they'll phase them in gradually. Number two, maybe they don't have the cast members to do it. Well,
they have no cast members at all right now, so.
Well, no, but maybe by July they'll have a couple. So I don't know. I mean, I think character dining, to me, honestly, like I'm not a huge character guy. I'm not like super into characters, but if I had kids that were super into characters, for a lot of people, the character dining is a better experience than, say, riding Journey into Imagination. In terms of what kids want to get out of a Disney World trip, you could take them to a character breakfast and they'll be thrilled for the rest of the day. They could sit at the hotel pool all day, and they'll be so happy that they had the character interaction at breakfast. So, honestly, I think that's...
especially for the fur characters. Like, I get it. The face character, you could not... So we went to Toothsome yesterday. You had those two characters, like the time... I don't even know if they're characters or what you call them.
Shock the Chocolate Robot and Vanellope Toothsome. Don't be ridiculous, Axel.
The timekeeper.
That robot and Vanellope, or how do you ever call her, she was even wearing a mask, and it fitted her outfit, so this was nice. But for Disney, if I get it that you don't want to expose the face characters, it would be weird seeing Mary Poppins with a face mask. I totally get it. But fur
Unless it's
characters
like lace, like
and
the
a
rest of the
distance,
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
fur
but even
characters
then,
make total sense. I mean, fur characters make total sense.
so I wouldn't be
you know-
happy to have a reservation for Chef Mickey's coming in there, and then all of a sudden it's no buffet anymore, it's family style. So you're thinking, yes, this is good, but there's no more characters. Then I might prefer to go to another restaurant.
What's the
and-
point
and
of
that
going to
dining
Chef
reservation-
Mickey's then? There's like zero
Well,
point to go to
that's-
Chef Mickey's
Crystal
because
Palace,
I mean,
same thing, if you ask me.
Oh yeah,
Kids like
no,
the
I
food.
agree
I don't know
too.
what
I
to
mean,
tell ya.
why do you want to go to a restaurant that has bad food? Normally, you go and tolerate the bad food because you get the characters, but now you're not even getting the characters. So, what's the point? I totally agree, which is why I just go to Flying Fish. But I wish they had breakfast.
Yeah. Flying Fish doesn't have Fruit Loops out of a thing, though. So my kids don't like it
No,
as much.
no. But I mean, honestly, yeah. And I mean, you could certainly say, well, the characters can pose for a picture, but they can't sign autographs. That makes perfect sense. You know, you can definitely put enough restrictions in place that I think it's fine to have character meals, and it's safe enough to have character meals and not have to eliminate them altogether. I mean, to be completely honest, I don't understand why you can't have fireworks because A, the park's already at 50% capacity, so you can have people standing farther apart. You can have a parade with 50% capacity too. It's not going to be crowded. I mean, even when the park is full, you go stand in Frontierland and there's plenty of space to see a parade in Frontierland without being on top of each other. So if the park's at 50% or less capacity, I don't see why you can't have fireworks. I think that's a money decision more than anything else, is the cut of the fireworks
Like a lot of other
and
things.
parades. Well, sure, but I mean,
set up tape squares down an entire parade route.
But Disney had said specifically that the reason that they're canceling fireworks and parades is because they can't adequately social distance. I think they can't.
No, you don't.
I think they don't want
people,
to.
No, people. I can tell you after the World of Disney opened, people aren't responsible. You can't. So you'd have to tape like entire viewing areas, and the parade route is so long. Imagine have to put that down and peel that up every day. It'd be insane. And the same with fireworks. You can see them from so many places. It's not worth it with this crowd. It's just not worth even trying, honestly.
Well, we've seen that on the day that the closing, like March 15th.
Yeah.
I remember we were at the Magic Kingdom and we tried to keep like on the side for the fireworks so we had nobody around us. But like even at that point where you know the danger and you know that the parks are going to close because of this virus, people were standing packed on just all together. First fireworks and then like the final goodbye. Everybody was standing on each other so close where you think like everybody is really, what's going on, and still you are standing so close to each other. And as I saw the pictures, I didn't want to be there that first day when the Disney operated shops opened again at Disney Springs. But when I saw the tweets coming in, I was like, whoa, people do not.
It was a disaster.
They don't understand, or they don't respect, or they can't get used to it.
They just don't respect.
But
I think they have no respect for
it's
other
going to be
people.
worse.
I mean, if you're going to buy 10 Mickey ears to resell on eBay, you're not the kind of person that's going to respect somebody else's social distancing efforts. You're just not. I mean, you don't respect people in line behind you that want to buy one pair of the Mickey ears, so why are you going to respect them and their health? You're not. You're not that kind of person. And that's, I think, the problem. I think Tom's hit the nail on the head that, these people, it's too much of a hassle. And maybe that's why it works at Shanghai and Hong Kong, because those people are more respectful. They respect the rules, whatever. Maybe not Shanghai. Maybe not Shanghai.
No.
Maybe Hong Kong.
No, but you could do the shows with the boxes in Shanghai because the way the viewing area was set up. Like you could leave that all day. At the Magic Kingdom, those areas are multi-purpose. Like most of the day that's an open sidewalk. Then for parades, it's not. Same with fireworks. Like, that's a big open pathway the rest of the day. You can't do it with these spaces that convert. So, like Phantasmic, they can probably figure out seating arrangements for Phantasmic because it doesn't have to be open all day. Like, that
Well,
might
they're
be
doing
the
it
first
for
nighttime
Rivers of
show
Light,
to
aren't
come
they?
back. I don't know that they're doing it for Rivers of Light.
I mean, no
Rivers
one,
of what?
You could certainly have Rivers of Light. I mean, that theater's half full on a good day. Well, I mean, if that's the only nighttime show that exists,
I don't want to live in that world.
Well, no, but you didn't. You also didn't want to live in a world where the only place you could get character dining was Shanghai. But welcome to that world. Yeah, I mean, they could, if they wanted to, they could certainly open Rivers of Light and Phantasmic. Those are two things that are absolutely doable. And you know, if Epcot is at 50% capacity, I think they could do. They could mark off World Showcase. There's plenty of space around World Showcase that it's doable too. So I think they could if they wanted to in some of these cases, and they're not because it saves them money. That's my thought.
Jason, somebody
My
in the
experience-
chat on YouTube made a good point. If we talk capacity, and I know that from our stores, when we talk capacity, it's not only the guests, it's also the people working there. So cast members are counted in that capacity of a park, restaurant, or shop. So I think like getting guest flow going when there's parade or fireworks, you are going to be at limited capacity of cast members anyways because of the general limited capacity.
Sure, that's fair. I don't think it's a significant issue though, because you know the capacity of the Magic Kingdom is like 90-some thousand, and you know another thousand cast members aren't going to really make a huge difference. That's like 1%. So. Yeah, I think my argument as far as capacity goes, and I think we talked about this when we first talked about the secure circuit protocol weeks and weeks ago, was that, okay, so for restaurants, it's pretty obvious at 50% capacity, that means every other table is going to be open. But what is the Magic Kingdom at 50% capacity? So on Christmas, when they close, there's 100,000 people in the Magic Kingdom. And so if you mark the capacity as 100,000, then, you know, on a random day in the middle of July, you might only get 50,000 people in the Magic Kingdom. That's 50% capacity. So the problem is that at 50% capacity, the Magic Kingdom doesn't seem super crowded, but it's pretty full of people, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And, you know, so there's people in lines for rides. There's people standing to watch the parade, watch the castle stage show. If you get rid of half of the entertainment offerings and you're still at 50% capacity, that makes the rest of the things in the Magic Kingdom even more crowded. So, you know, the question of 50% capacity, it's 50% of what? And is it based on the number of attractions and other entertainment offerings? Is that taken into account? Just like you said, cast members are taken into account when you calculate 50% capacity. I mean, the Magic Kingdom capacity fluctuates based on how many attractions are open.
Correct.
So, you know, if Haunted Mansion is closed, that changes the capacity of the Magic Kingdom because there's X number of people that are in line or on the ride. So is that taken into account for things like parades and stage shows and fireworks?
Parades and stage shows do not add capacity. They don't add capacity. Capacity is physical space. So attractions are buildings in most cases and physical space, as are pathways and benches and things of that sort.
Okay. So
it has to be physical
fair.
space. It's physical
and that
space.
makes sense to me. The problem is that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when you would normally have 15,000 people lined up to watch a parade, that's 15,000 people that aren't going to be taken out of queues for attractions or restaurants or whatnot. That's 15,000 people more that are going to be in line for rides. than on a regular day. So at that point, your queue capacity is going to be more than 50% filled.
Makes sense.
So, I mean, my thought is that even if, how often and what days the parks operate at 50% capacity, I mean, there's plenty of days like in the middle of January where they operate at less than 50% capacity. So if it's 50% of Christmas Day capacity that the Magic Kingdom is going to operate at, that's still going to be a pretty crowded day at the Magic Kingdom. And they're going to end up filling queues completely with their 6-foot social distancing markings. The queues are going to be full for all these rides. Now, naturally, they'll probably move twice as fast, or maybe even 3 times as fast if you don't have to deal with Fast Pass. But the queues are still going to be full of people because there's just going to be that many people in the park looking for things to do.
Sad but true.
So let's. I want to talk a bit more about what we are thinking in terms of, hotel and dining reservations. When Disney said, because the people that have valid theme park admission are going to have access to the theme park reservation system. We still don't know if a hotel reservation is going to get you access to a theme park, like as I think you said, Tom, that nobody's going to book a hotel unless they're guaranteed to get into at least one park a day. Because why would you spend all that money for a hotel at Walt Disney World and then not have a guaranteed entry into the park? So there's that. Which that also means then, I don't know the raw numbers in terms of if every hotel at Walt Disney World was filled to capacity, would that be enough to have all the parks be at 50% capacity in terms of numbers of guests? I don't know. I don't know the numbers. I think there's something like 33,000 hotel rooms at Walt Disney World. If each one is averaged somewhere between 2 and 3 people, that could be 100,000 people in Disney hotels. And then, if the Magic Kingdom is 50,000 and Epcot is 50,000 and Studios and Animal Kingdom maybe are 25,000, they could certainly guarantee admission to all the guests in a Disney hotel and still have enough space for pass holders and locals and whatnot. So yeah, it would make sense that resort guests get guaranteed admission to a park, but which park? I mean, which park matters because it depends on how many non-resort guests made a park reservation for that day. You're going to want to be able to either pick in advance which park you go to which day, or know or something, at least be told, so that you can sort of plan your days and plan your restaurant reservations if you're going to eat in a park or whatnot. So how all this is going to play out?
Straight Epcot?
Well, I mean, I don't. Maybe they just open, like, how they open dining reservations to people at 190 days. Technically, if you have a 10-day resort reservation, maybe they do that with the park reservation system as well. I don't know. It's going to be real interesting to see, because they're talking about updating their systems. Clearly, we saw this with like the virtual queue at Hollywood Studios. The system has to know that you're in the park in order to let you get in the virtual queue for Rise of the Resistance. And there's glitches that the system doesn't know you're in the park. And so, it happened to Tom when I was there with him the first time I was in the park to ride Rise of the Resistance. The system didn't know Tom was in the park, and he was flipping out that he couldn't get a ride time for Rise of the Resistance. So, there's a lot of system glitches. Obviously, we make fun of My Disney Experience app all the time on various shows around WDWNT. So my hope, and this kind of goes back to what do we hope is going to what good do we hope is going to come out of this whole situation? I'm hoping that when they do the system updates that require, to require theme park reservations, I hope the system is going to work better, that A, it doesn't go down all the time, but B, like it knows that you're in the park and it knows that you can get in the virtual queue. How Fast Pass Pluses are going to work when, if you can book a Fast Pass Plus at 60 days out, well, you need to be able to know which park you're going to be in order to book a Fast Pass. So the theme park reservations are going to have to be available and bookable before Fast Passes are. So does that mean that theme park reservations are going to open at 60 days? Well, we're at, 40 days right now before the parks reopen and you can't even book anything. But how's that going to play out for the fall, maybe, in terms of when Fast Passes finally do become available? You're going to have to book a theme park reservation. Then you're going to have to book a Fast Pass. The system has to know that you have a theme park reservation in order to let you have a Fast Pass. It knows that you can't book a Fast Pass without a ticket. So obviously it would make sense that it shouldn't be a big deal to make it not let you book a Fast Pass without a park reservation that day. But my hope is that, with these system upgrades in place, that the whole operation of My Disney Experience becomes much, much smoother and much better. They have the opportunity to do it now without any, reservations in the system. So I hope they take the time to do it and get the system working much more reliably than it has been since its launch, really. My biggest concern is that they don't have the IT expertise to actually pull that off.
In the meantime, they have so many other things to still fix. Because, for example, if I have an annual pass and it would expire June 1st, tomorrow, Disney is going to extend my annual pass for the days the park is closed. So my annual pass expires tomorrow. I have 70 days that it would be extended. At this time, everybody who had a pass that expired has no pass, cannot see anything in My Disney Experience. So what if they would open theme park reservations? You are entitled for
75 more days of your pass.
Yes.
Yeah, like if your pass expired on, right.
You cannot book because you're not.
Right,
you don't have a valid ticket.
So they got to get that fixed first. They got to get that fixed first. There's also supposed to be limits on the number of theme park reservations that annual pass holders can have. So there's a lot of things that this system is going to have to be able to do that it doesn't do now, and that's why I said, honestly, they've got a little over 5 weeks until the parks open. 5 weeks may not be enough to get the system functioning as it should if you had a good IT department working on it. But you've got Disney's IT department working on it, so I don't hold out a lot of hope. I mean, obviously they're going to have to get certain functions activated, like the theme park reservations, but I don't hold out a lot of hope that that's even going to work well, let alone get other things in this system fixed. This is a great opportunity to do it, and I hope they do it because it'll make everybody's life a lot easier. But with their, knowing how poorly some IT systems run at Disney now, I don't know that they've got the people that could pull it off. So,
But do you think they made it themselves harder than it should be? Like if you look at Universal, I know Universal is a smaller resort, but they say there's no reservations needed. When we're at capacity, we're at capacity. Something that Disney could have done. So now with this reservation system, are they making it harder for themselves
I
to
think
manage through this?
that's
But
an
it's a
absolutely
different
valid
park
point.
going experience.
It is.
And I think we've talked about this previously, is that being turned away at the parking lot of Universal is a much different experience than being turned away at the turnstile of Magic Kingdom.
Well, not
So I
only
think you
that,
have-
I mean,
You have to do a
They could-
reservation system.
they could certainly turn you away at the parking, the toll booths into the Magic Kingdom, and that's what they do. That's their phase one closing, like at Christmas, is people that aren't at a resort guest get turned away first at the Magic Kingdom toll plaza. But I think honestly, the other situation that you're facing is that when people come to Disney World, they come for a week and they spend the whole week and they go to the Disney parks, for those days. Universal's not like that. I mean, it tries to be like that, but it's not. And a lot of it is, a couple days here and there, or people go 1 to 2 days out of a Disney trip, or there's locals that pop in here and there. It's a very different way that the whole vacation going experience operates between Universal and Disney. Universal now has more on-site resorts than they ever have. So they're trying to get more of the Disney system going, but it's still not the same. And I think, as Tom said, you're not going to book a week at a Disney hotel unless you're guaranteed admission to the theme parks. And obviously Universal has done exactly that. They've guaranteed admission to the theme parks if you're at a resort hotel.
Like Disney does at Christmas, like you say.
Exactly.
So,
right.
So
it makes total sense.
So they could do it. They could do it right now as well. Disney just wants to avoid with this reservation system that you get into your car, that you drive 6 hours, that you arrive and you cannot get into the park.
Right.
On the other hand, you're going to have a lot of people that are disappointed, animal pass holders, that might not be able to go into the park when they want for the pass because if you buy a pass, you want to go whenever you please.
Sure. And not have to have a
whatever
hotel
park
reservation.
you want.
Sure.
That's correct.
I mean,
so it's like
park hopping. Park hopping has been a thing since Epcot opened, and all of a sudden you may not be able to park hop anymore. I mean, honestly, from my point of view, park hopping is a lot of a hassle, and there's very little return for the amount of hassle. The biggest reason that I would normally park hop is because I'm at Animal Kingdom in the morning, and then I want to go see a good nighttime spectacular, so I need to go to a different park. Or, Magic Kingdom in the off-season only has fireworks on Saturdays, so I need to go to the Magic Kingdom on Saturday, and maybe I don't want to spend the whole day there, but I need to go for the fireworks. So, but to be honest, without nighttime spectaculars, there's a lot less necessity for park hopping now anyways.
But there's also
but
people
that's another
leaving the
thing.
park. Yeah, like if you're a local, like I would say I work in the afternoon, the morning I want to go to Animal Kingdom. I just want to have my coffee, walk around. So I make a reservation to go to Animal Kingdom. And at noontime, I'm gone. So I've been in the park for 3 to 2 hours, and I'm gone. There's a physical spot
So
there.
why can't me, who was at Epcot in the morning, park up to Animal Kingdom after lunch and take your spot? I should be able. I mean, capacity-wise, it works fine.
Yes, and that's something that's possible now at Universal, and something that's possible at Christmas times or busy times at Disney, where you see like, okay, one comes out, the other goes in. Like, it's a bit simplistic to say it like that.
I mean,
but you're still
they
able
do
to
that
do
at grocery stores now.
With a reservation, like I made a reservation, maybe I just want to go do Flight of Passage and be out of there. And that's taking a whole day away from somebody else. So I don't know how they are going to do that.
Well, and you know what's going to happen? Once the Twitterverse gets wind of this, they're going to yell and scream at all the bloggers who go to the parks and only stay an hour. They're going to yell and scream that the bloggers are taking away the opportunity for a family to go to the park because they couldn't get a reservation.
They're yelling at the bloggers already. So,
but here's my thought. Remember when they used to have the park hopping buses? You know, they could bring that back. Where if you want to park hop, you take this bus, and the bus, you know, if you're at Epcot, the bus doesn't let you on to go to Magic Kingdom if there's no capacity at the Magic Kingdom. Simple as that, right? So they could allow park hopping if they wanted to. They just need to let you know before you leave Epcot whether you're going to be able to get into the Magic Kingdom or not. And that's based solely on numbers and capacity. So it's easy enough that they could do that. Like, you know, you go to the bus pickup spot at Epcot, and if, you know, there's a sign out front that says we're currently allowing park hopping to Animal Kingdom and Studios, but not Magic Kingdom because it's at capacity. They could do that. That's easy enough to do. Will they? I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, they took away the buses because money. So what they wouldn't, I don't think they would bring it back just to let people park hop. But it would be nice, and it's totally doable. So we'll have to see.
The funny thing of this all, like the conversation that we're having, I'm sure some Disney executive is having this exact same conversation. No, like, actually, what are we going to do? Are we going to do it or not?
I don't think they are. I think the like park. I think like management at park level is having this conversation, and then when they go to ask the executives, "Can we do this?" the executive is going to be like, "No, costs too much." Go ahead, David. Sorry.
No, I was going to say exactly that. I think you're right. I think it's easier for them to just say no park hopping. They don't have to plan for it. They don't have to worry about it. You get a reservation for the day, and you make whatever use you want of that reservation. Unfortunately, I would love to see park hopping because for us, it's actually a fairly big part of our planning is, and this goes back to those dining reservations. If we're making reservations out that differs from the park that we want to be in,
then you got a park hop. Sure.
We got to hop, right?
Yep. Or I mean, like we'll go to a park in the morning and we'll go back to the hotel in the afternoon and rest and go in the pool, and then we'll kind of decide, well, do we need to go back to the Magic Kingdom, or did we do everything this morning and now we can go to Studios at night or something? Like the whole park hopping thing of you haven't decided what you want to do, and it's kind of like this happens the last day or the last 2 days of your trip. Well, what do we still need to get done in which parks, and can we spend the whole day at Studios, or do we need to head back to Magic Kingdom to do one or two more things that we haven't done yet? Whether you have a dining reservation planned, or whether you didn't get on Haunted Mansion the first time you're at Magic Kingdom, so you got to hop back there one of the days just to ride Haunted Mansion before you go home. There's a lot of reasons I think that park hopping is helpful and useful, and that's why people pay extra to put it on their ticket. I mean, honestly, in terms of tickets, that $60 or $70 park hopper option costs Disney next to nothing. It's pure 100% profit for them to sell a ticket with park hopping. So you would kind of think they want to figure out a way to allow park hopping just because of the sheer profit margin on the park hopping add-on to the tickets. It's all cash.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, other than running a couple extra buses, it doesn't cost them anything.
Yeah, I mean, our ongoing tradition has always been the last thing we do on our trip before heading to the airport is Magic Kingdom Main Street. Pick up some snacks, then head to the airport. But I am curious, because since we tend not to go during the busiest times, when they get to capacity-controlled closings like Magic Kingdom, what do they do about park hopping? Do they let you know before you get on the monorail or before you get on a bus that you're probably not going to get into Magic Kingdom, or do they wait till
Tom, you're the Christmas goer. What is your experience with that?
What was the question? Sorry, I was dealing with something.
Tom is still here. I thought he disappeared. He was so silent.
What do they do? What do they do like at Christmas when Magic Kingdom hits capacity, but you're at Epcot and you have a park hopper ticket? Do they tell you can't go to Magic Kingdom?
Only certain people have access. If you're a resort guest, you're guaranteed access. If you have a reservation in the park like dining, you're guaranteed access. But if you're like a regular park hopper, you're not guaranteed anything.
Okay, so if you have a resort package...
Do they tell you when you get... I'm sorry, Jason. Do they tell you when you get to the turnstile to enter into the park, or do they tell you back at the transportation location?
Like, because you wouldn't leave Epcot if you knew you couldn't get in.
The monorail. They tell you at the monorail if you're.
They tell you, okay.
So at Transportation
So
and Ticket Center, they absolutely put out a sign that the park's closed at capacity as well. Yeah.
But they'll tell. So, like, if you're leaving studios, will they tell you before you get on the bus that Magic Kingdom's at capacity?
If the bus is going to the Transportation and Ticket Center or Magic Kingdom, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that I mean that's kind of what you'd expect, right, David? So at least they're cognizant
Right. I mean,
of that
that's
situation.
thinking about the guests. But what I think my point is, I'm not sure why they couldn't do that with, the capacity limits.
Right. Even at 50, they could do it at 100% capacity. They sure could do it at 50% capacity too. It doesn't. It's the same situation, no matter what the capacity is. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Like you said, I think it's just easier to say no park hopping than it is to figure out these logistics. And unfortunately, I think that's either incompetence or laziness on the part of whatever management makes these decisions. It's certainly not putting the guest experience first. It's putting money or themselves first up in front of the guest experience. All right, we're hitting our 2-hour mark. So, I think we're winding down this part of the conversation. It'll certainly be interesting to see how all of this ramps back up with the restaurant reservations and fast pass reservations. But like I said, canceling all the Disney dining plan, well, if you have restaurants that can't fit more than 50% of their capacity, then you can't have people on a dining plan that encourage them to eat at restaurants more often. It's just not going to work out. So, certainly there'll be a lot less people getting dessert at Pecos Bill's now because they don't have a dessert on the dining plan. They're not gonna pay $4.99 for that little piece of cheesecake that's crappy. So yeah, there'll be some changes for sure. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, and I think we'll know a lot next week. We'll end up having to talk about how things went at Universal for the first couple of days between the AP previews and the public opening. June 5th is going to tell us a lot.
And the 30th anniversary on the 7th. Don't forget that.
Well, you got the anniversary too, but I think June 5th is going to tell us a lot in terms of how many people are going to show up to get into Universal, and they don't need reservations. So how many people are going to show up and have to get turned away? Are people going to get there at 6 in the morning to ensure that they get into Universal? Is this going to be like a Black Friday shopping thing at Disney Springs where people show up at 6 a.m. to get in the front of the line? In my mind, that's just as much of a problem as making a reservation. At least when you have a reservation, you know that you're going to get in, versus showing up at 7:30 and you still don't get in, or as happened at World of Disney, you're fourth in line and you still don't get the Mickey Mouse ears because they only had 30 and the first 3 people bought them all. So we'll see. You think June 5th is going to be real interesting to see how all this works out, and we'll talk about that next week. So any last thoughts from anybody else on the panel in terms of things we talked about tonight, or ideas that just popped into your head that we haven't talked about yet?
I'm not sure we've fulfilled our promise to be all positive, but I think there is a lot of positive news. I think the state of the world right now makes it difficult to be 100% positive, but we're making progress. I think on the parks front, there are other vastly more important things going on in the world right now, but at least we're seeing something in an area that interests us.
Yeah, no, I think we just all really have to keep our fingers crossed that infection rates don't shoot back up, and that governors decide, opening the theme parks was a mistake and shut them back down. I think that's my biggest worry in terms of what's happening with the parks, is that if coronavirus cases spike, then all this could be right back to square one, and that's my biggest worry in terms of what may happen with all these parks and openings and things. So we'll have
I
to
mean,
see.
as you said, we'll know more next week with Universal, and as we've seen, once Disney knew that Universal was going to open all 3 parks, they switched gears, and all of a sudden it was all 4 parks. It's going to be interesting to see what Disney is going to communicate once we see Universal coming back to life, and how they're going to communicate. So it's interesting times we live in.
Yep. What else I think is going to be real interesting, and we touched on this a couple weeks ago, is that how different it's going to be at Universal versus Disney in terms of enforcement of the rules. We saw this at City Walk versus Disney Springs, where City Walk seemed to be much more focused on enforcing the mask rules and the distancing rules. In Disney Springs, it was kind of like all hell broke loose sometimes. And people were encroaching on Tom's 6-foot circle, and he wasn't happy about it. So, I mean, enforcing the rules is another huge aspect of this, and certainly it's certainly feasible that it could work out much better at one place than another. So that's something else we'll have to see. But as far as that goes, I've seen a lot of instances on Twitter and whatnot where people are like, their concern is that there's going to be vigilante justice of if you take your mask off in a park to have a drink, somebody else is going to yell and scream at you and start a fight because you don't have a mask on, and that violates the rules. So that's going to be real interesting to see what happens too. Maybe that's why Disney said something very vague along the lines of they're going to have like these zones where you're allowed to take your mask off to get a breath or something. That was a huge vague thing they came out with that sounded like it was just to appease people, and I don't know how it's going to operate in reality, but we'll probably find out more about that in the coming weeks too. All right. Any last words from Tom, or are you busy?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Huge shout out to Kevin, who's run all the tech for this show. Big thank you to my 3 panelists. Big thank you to you, the audience, for tuning in every week here. And we'll be back next Sunday at 8 p.m. again. And I think we're gonna talk about DVC one way or the other. How about that? I promise that we'll talk about DVC to some extent. It may be a conversation that goes over a couple of different shows, because we have a fair number of DVC members on staff, and I know all of them are interested in talking about it. So we might end up rotating panelists in here and touch on DVC over the course of the next couple of shows. But certainly next week we'll talk a lot about Universal's reopening and how that has happened. And Axel, are you going to Universal? Do you got a reservation?
Wednesday the 3rd, I'll be there.
All right. So we'll have you back. We might have Tom back on again. Although Tom, are you still going to be at? You're going to be in the hotel, aren't you?
I'll still be at Universal, yeah. My exciting staycation at Universal.
Although it's at 8 o'clock and Universal might be closed by then, so.
Yeah, I might be home by then. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. We'll see. But no, definitely a big topic will be how Universal handled the previews and the public opening coming up this week. So that'll be the main focus of next week's show, and then we'll definitely get in some DVC discussion with some DVC members on the staff. But until next week, thank you all for watching. Thanks for following along with us. Thanks for being fans of WDW News Today. Stay tuned to all of our news over the course of this week, and we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.